The world is watching as Donald Trump reshapes America's fate, striking boldly against the world's most powerful nations. Trade wars with allies, abandoned treaties, and sharp words against partners push the country closer to isolation. What seems like strength abroad begins to corrode stability at home. Markets shake, trust crumbles, and ordinary families feel the weight of policies designed to serve power, not people. At first, resistance sparks quietly. The White House peace vigil, burning since 1981, is torn down on Trump's orders. Yet within hours, the candles are relit. That tiny flicker of defiance spreads across the nation. On No King's Day, more than 5 million Americans fill the streets of over 2,000 cities. Their message is simple but thunderous. This nation was never meant to be ruled by a king. Signs reading, "No Kings," and "We are the law" rise in every corner, from Los Angeles to Philadelphia. Among them stands Mark Ruffalo, the Hulk himself, declaring into the microphone, "We're the Avengers now. No one's going to come and save us." His words become a rallying cry, echoing through crowds and across social media, giving shape to a movement that is no longer silent. Then comes another blow. In a move that stuns the world, Trump imposes new tariffs and entry fees on international tourists, insisting America must profit from its borders. But instead of filling coffers, the decision backfires. Visitors cancel trips in record numbers. Airlines cut routes, hotels sit half empty, and entire neighborhoods built on tourism revenues begin to collapse. Cities once alive with laughter and foreign voices, New York, Miami, San Francisco, now see ghost streets and darkened theaters. Workers in restaurants, gift shops, and entertainment venues watch their incomes vanish overnight. What was once a proud declaration of strength becomes a symbol of short-sighted greed. For protesters, it is the perfect example of how one man's policies ripple into every corner of ordinary life. The tourism crisis becomes a rallying point. Families who once survived on seasonal income now march beside students and veterans. Their signs read, "Jobs not tariffs," and "Tourism is our lifeline." International news outlets beam images of shuttered hotels and empty Times Square into living rooms worldwide, painting America as a closed fortress, pushing away not only enemies, but friends. For the first time in generations, travelers choose other destinations over the United States, and the consequences spread far beyond economics. It becomes a wound to national pride. But the unrest does not stop there. Farmers, already battered by global trade wars, drive tractors into city centers. Students flood campuses with chants of "No kings, no chains." Veterans, men and women who fought in wars overseas, march with flags held high, demanding accountability from the very government they once served. The rebellion spreads beyond party lines. Republicans who feel betrayed and Democrats who feel silenced stand shoulder to shoulder. In small towns and major cities alike, the air grows heavy with chants, drums, and the unshakable rhythm of a movement that refuses to be ignored. Globally, America's allies distance themselves. Longtime partners whisper that they can no longer depend on Washington. Rivals seize the opportunity, strengthening their own ties and carving out influence in a world once dominated by U.S. power. The dollar shakes, markets tremble, and analysts warn that unchecked isolation abroad will lead to collapse at home. Protesters see this clearly, carrying banners that read, "One man, many enemies." They insist this is not about partisanship, but about survival, because a democracy without opposition is a democracy already half dead. As weeks pass, the protests evolve. New chants rise, "Resign now," "Restore democracy," "No more kings." Trump's image, once crafted as a symbol of populist strength, becomes a caricature of tyranny at rallies nationwide. Murals of his face are painted in mock royal robes, crown tilted and cracked, with graffiti screaming, "The last king of America." Lawmakers whisper about impeachment, judges quietly resist sweeping orders, and the machinery of government strains under the weight of one man's will. In city squares, families stand side by side. Mothers lift their children above the chanting crowds, telling them to remember this day as the moment freedom was defended. Grandparents, who recall marches from the civil rights era, carry signs reminding the young that liberty is never granted, but always fought for. Veterans, worn and scarred, march at the front, declaring that they did not bleed for kings, but for citizens. Each protest becomes a tapestry of generations, bound together by fear and hope. And yet the story is not simple. Every narrative needs a villain and a hero, but here the lines blur. Trump is both, the destroyer of trust and the spark that forced Americans to reclaim their voices. His tariffs, his trade wars, his assaults on long-standing alliances, all of it fuels a fire that cannot be extinguished. The protests themselves are either the savior of democracy or its desperate final cry. To his supporters, he is the strong man needed in a weak world. To his critics, he is the very embodiment of a king, cloaked not in robes but in executive orders and iron rhetoric. Meanwhile, the world watches with unease. Foreign newspapers ask whether America's century of leadership is ending. Diplomats whisper that the United States has become unpredictable, untrustworthy, too dangerous to follow. Economists warn of capital flight, while humanitarian groups brace for the collapse of programs once funded by American dollars. The chants of no kings are not just about democracy. They are about survival in a world where America's choices ripple across every continent. And so the protests swell. Millions pour into the streets, their chants rolling like thunder through canyons of glass skyscrapers and quiet rural towns alike. The sound is unrelenting, an unbroken cry of a nation demanding to be heard. "No kings!" shakes the foundations of power, echoing through social media, television screens, and across oceans. The world watches, breath held, as the storm rages on. The question remains, will America rise from this turmoil renewed, its democracy reforged in fire? Or will it stumble, crushed under the weight of hubris, fear, and division? The answer is unwritten. The candles of protest still burn, the chants still rise, and the world, tense, uncertain, waiting, watches to see whether this great experiment in freedom will endure or collapse into its own downfall.